This is Bible School Radio, KDKR, Decatur, Dallas, Fort Worth, KYJC, Commerce, and KMWC, Bethany. Portions of KDKR programming do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or staff.
Prudent Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.
Well, from credit disaster to credit master. Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon, this is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Well, so are you facing a debt crisis, or you just like to increase your credit score? What do you need to know to do so, and what we're going to talk about today? Author Laurie Madock is here with some answers from her book, Credit Disaster to Credit Master. Laurie, welcome to Prudent Money.
Thank you, Bob, for having me today.
Yeah, let's start with one of the biggest cons of the credit business. In fact, you start the book with this, credit repair companies. Now, to be fair, right, I'm sure that there's somewhere out there there are some good credit repair companies doing some good service for people. I would suggest it's probably a low probability. But why are credit repair companies not the way to go? And give us a rundown on that.
Sure, I can. Because the majority of credit repair companies do not operate under the Credit Repair Organizations Act, called CROA for short, which means that they cannot make any promises, yet most of them do, that they need to be insured, which most of them are not, and also they need to be licensed, which most of them are not. Additionally, they tell you to do things, and I will tell you I have a heart attack when I scroll through Facebook and I see what some of these experts are offering, and all I can say is run, because if they make promises that are too good to be true, for example, I love the words, we'll sweep your credit clean. You'll have 800 scores in 3 days. And they post things that are not legal. And let me just qualify this. I'm not a lawyer, but I do refer cases to attorneys when they're legitimate, and I know how the operating system works. The majority of credit repair companies do not operate legally because they want to keep you coming back forever and ever. And at an average of $150 per month, and it takes a year to 2 years, those are big numbers. The difference between me as a credit educational consultant and teacher, and also author, obviously, is that I want clients to know how to legitimately solve problems. And that is the purpose of the book, From Credit Disaster to Credit Master, because I see how many people make huge mistakes. And the reason they make the mistakes is because in credit world, things that you as a consumer you would think would make common sense to help your score, it typically backfires, and instead it hurts your score. And so that's why I wrote the book.
Let's talk a little bit about credit reporting agencies. What are some of the things that consumers need to know?
Well, there are there's lots of credit agencies, credit bureaus. The three main ones are TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. They are all individual corporations. They are not government entities. And they all use an adapted algorithm from the FICO company, which makes those magical scores that show up on your reports. And one of the things I want to talk about with that is there is not just one set of FICO scores. There are multiple software versions of FICO scores, and they are used for different purposes, such as there are mortgage FICO scores, car insurance FICO scores, there's consumer FICO scores. So they're all for a different purpose, and that is how the FICO company makes their money.
And it's safe to say they do make quite a bit of it.
Oh, you mean quite a bit of money?
Yes, quite a bit of money.
Yeah, they do, because they're the main company that does it. Now, I just read, I think this morning, that Vantage, like, for example, people use Credit Karma, which shows TransUnion and Equifax, but it doesn't show Experian, which doesn't help consumers because creditors and collectors pay to subscribe. So if you're not seeing Experian on that report, you may end up in trouble. If you're going for a house, you won't know what was on it. So not every company subscribes to all three credit bureaus. But Credit Karma uses Vantage 3.0 software, and I've read now that some mortgage companies may start using Vantage 4.0 scores that have been approved. But for the most part, most companies use FICO.
So talk about some of the main ways to lose points off of your credit score.
Oh, okay. Almost everything that you think is good is bad.
Yes.
So I'll give you a good example. Anytime you open or close cards, you're going to get points off of your score. And where you got to be careful, because a lot of people will do balance transfers on their credit cards to another credit card for, say, 0% interest for a year. Well, they got a hard hit inquiry in most cases when they opened the new account. It's going to be points. FICO doesn't reveal points, but I'm going to guesstimate about 5 points. Now, if they closed the other account, they're going to close up all their past history, and if it was a positively reporting account, again, they're going to take more points off of their score. Things that take points off of scores also would be any type of late payment. So a late payment, say on a credit card, it's different because it is based on your scores and an algorithm. It could be anywhere from, I'm going to say, 30 to 100 points, whereas on a mortgage late payment, it could be 1 to 200 points or more. So, if you're mailing in your payment to a creditor and it doesn't get there in time, they don't care. It's not their fault that the mail was slow. And then you will end up getting a score hit right there. One of the other things, too, is what people don't realize. When they go to apply to a lender for a home or for a car, FICO states that within a certain amount of weeks, usually 3 or 4, all of the credit pulls that are, say, mortgage-related, or if it's a car that are car-related, all count as 1 point hit. I'm going to tell you, I've done this for 19 years, and I don't see that. So just as an example, let me use the car analogy. If you don't have great scores, and you might qualify for a car, and you agree on a price, and then the finance lender says, all right, well, give me your Social Security, your date of birth, your information. I'm going to run it, and I'm going to see what is the best deal I can get you. Well, here's what they don't tell you. Every single one of those pulls, let's say they pull it 20 times, which is really ridiculous. At an average of 5 points, they will drop your score 100 points. Well, what does that mean to you? It now means that the interest rate on your car went up, and that lender is probably earning some type of a commission on the back end, possibly every month, depending upon the lender. It kind of works the same way with homes. So if you are going to a mortgage broker, a broker is going to run you through multiple companies again, whereas a loan originator at a bank or at a mortgage company that is its own bank, they're just going to pull it one time. I don't like using car finance dealers, but I did on my last car. But see, I'm a little bit different, Bob. So what I did was I printed up a document that said, you may only pull my credit one time because my scores are in the 800s. What best deal are you going to get me? I'm already, anything over 780 is great. Right. So that way, if they attempted to do it later on, I would have a document to send into the credit bureaus to say, hey, you know what? No permission was granted. And so you're going to have to take it off. So those are some of the things that can happen.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Laurie Madock is here with me today. We're talking about a great book, From Credit Disaster to Credit Master, How to Legitimately Earn High Credit Scores and Solve Problems. Let's talk a little bit about negative items, Laurie. How long can they stay on the credit report?
The majority of them can can stay on your credit report for 7 years from the date it initially went delinquent. Now, the exception to that is if you made another payment or payments and then you default again, then that would become the initial date of delinquency for the 7 years for it to come off. An exception would be bankruptcy. So Chapter 7 can stay on for 10 years. So there can be exceptions. Nowadays, most of the government items, such as judgments or liens, those type of judgments can appear separately on a government report. So that's usually only used when you're buying a collateralized item such as a vehicle or a home. They're going to look at that government, do you owe the IRS money? So certain government items were removed from the consumer credit report, but that doesn't mean a lender's not going to look at it, to judge you, to figure out, are you worthy, so to speak, of being able to qualify.
Talk a little bit how you dispute information with a credit reporting agency. You find, you come across something, you go, this isn't correct. How do you go about getting it corrected?
Well, that's really an interesting question, and I'll tell you why. Most people think that when they write a letter to the credit bureaus, and believe me, I've seen like credit repair companies advertising, use this 623 letter regarding a statute, use our special letters. Bob, the only time people read the letters are when they're legal. All the regular dispute letters, they're typically shipped overseas. They are then optically scanned, and your disputes are converted into a 2-digit code relevant to what it is or the reason is that you're disputing. There is no one reading it. And so then what happens is there is a special software program that the credit bureaus use so that they can just zap it out electronically to the creditor or the collector. They have a specialized form which has your information in it, and then it zaps back to the creditor, and then, of course, it zaps back to you. Now, if the creditor or collector, if it's the same information, it's going to come back the same way. If it is different, whether it's positive or negative, that may be adjusted on it when it comes back. So no one, unless it's like a legal case or a victim of identity theft, it's all electronic. No one's looking at it. To get it corrected, well, keep in mind, a lot of people dispute things saying it's not mine, even though they know it actually is. And so the subtitle on my book was How to Legitimately Earn High Credit Scores and Solve Problems, because I help people who have legitimate problems. So if you actually owe the money, then I teach clients how to do debt negotiation, or they can pay me to do it if they're too nervous to do it. But that's another complicated subject. So with them, if it is a legitimate problem, all of my clients send their paperwork out via certified return receipt mail. And the reason for that is ultimately if they've sent out 2 letters roughly 30 days apart and it's a legitimate problem and they have proof and the credit bureau has not fixed it, at that point I can then send them to an attorney for an evaluation. And typically attorneys take credit reporting laws, they'll say, hey, does this fall under that? The same thing with debt collection. So a lot of times the attorneys don't even charge any money. So I teach them how to do it as if they're their own consumer advocate and how to protect themselves so that they can get that problem solved. It may get solved by them themselves, but a lot of times it does, unfortunately, require you using an attorney. But if you have the correct paperwork, it may not cost you any money. And then, of course, if the attorney wins, they'll get a portion of it and you'll get a portion of it. And the goal, of course, is to get deleted off your report.
Laurie's website, if you want to go get more information on the book, crediteducationconsultants.com. It's always surprised me that, and I see a lot of credit reports and what I do money management for a living. To see people with a lot of debt, but still they've got a good credit score, and somewhere in the 700s. It's always surprised me.
I hate to say it's an unfair game in a lot of ways. So you can have a lot of money and you can spend a lot of money, but what is your available limit on each of those cards? So if for example, if you have 3 credit cards and there's a $10,000 max and you're not spending a lot of money, across the board on those 3, your scores will be higher than someone who has maxed out their credit cards. One little tip I'll give your listeners too is this. I typically pay off. I only have 2 credit cards and my scores are in the 800s because my cards are 20 years old and 25 years old with perfect payment history. And I never owe money with one exception. If I know I'm going to apply for a loan, say for a car or a home, the little trick is leave $5 or $10 on those credit cards, and it will actually boost the scores up. And sometimes it's enough. So, for example, if someone's trying to qualify at, say, they're a 680 and they need a 700, and they have nothing owed, if they leave that small balance, it'll probably kick them up, most likely, to the next highest, cutoff, to the 700. So I will tell you, my husband gets a little bit of a heart attack. He's an authorized user on my credit cards, and he doesn't really use them, but it helps his score. But he'll get his credit monitoring will say your score went up 25 points, your score went down 25 points, up, down, up, down. Why? That's when I play with my own credit. So, like I said, typically I owe no money because I don't want to pay ridiculous interest rates. But if I want to see how much it will go up if I leave a $5 balance and it goes up 25 points, great. As soon as I pay it off, it drops back to 25 points. So that's how I can kind of tell how the system works. So I don't believe everything that FICO says to necessarily be true just because I've done this for a long time and I see certain things happening.
Laurie, let me ask you this way: does it surprise you that interest rates on credit cards have gotten so high, and to the point that even if they drop a full percent, it's not even going to move the needle?
It doesn't, and I am surprised. I'll tell you a quick story about myself with my 2 credit cards. Both of my credit cards for many, many years, they were at roughly 7 and 8%. I mean, unheard of. And in the last 2 years, the one that was 8% went to 10.99. Not horrible. I don't owe money, so it doesn't really matter. But the one that I spend a lot of money on every year, that one went from like 7.99%, and now it's at 19.25%. Keep in mind, I owe no money.
Right.
So in credit card world, I'm called a deadbeat because I owe no money.
Right.
But I called up the credit card company and I go, "What are you guys doing? Why did you raise my interest rate? I don't even owe you money." And the answer was because some of the laws changed in the last couple of years where government fees had to be reduced for late payments and wherever they could fee you to death. So to make up for losing those extra fees, they just raised everybody's, interest rates across the board. So I look at, 19.25, or I think that's what it was. It's basically loan sharking. And sadly, people don't look to see what they're paying in interest rate. So if the average family is carrying $8,000 a year in credit card debt, and their interest rates are probably 25, 28%, you can go to an amortization schedule on your computer and put it in and see, or if you're getting the mailed bills, it'll also show you what you're paying in interest. I don't know that people even look at it and realize.
Yeah,
but it's the same as if they purchase a home. Let's say they purchase a home, we'll just say $100,000. You can't get a home anymore for that, but just as an example. And their interest rate might be 9%. They don't realize that they're probably paying 3 times the amount of that $100,000 over 30 years. And so when they sell it, they're not actually making money because they've put $300,000 into the house. So really, it's a way to get your money back out of the house, but you're not truly making a profit in most cases. If you're a rehabber and you're fixing up, that's a little different. But just for the regular person, you need to use an amortization schedule, online on your computer or phone, and it lets you put in how much of a deposit, what interest rate, and then how much, it'll tell you how much per month you owe. And there are certain tricks you can do with both cars and homes. As long as there's no prepayment penalty, you can make payments every week on your home. You could divide it out. What I used to do with my car was I would pay, let's just say January 1st, I would make my, maybe it was a $200 payment. I'd pay $200 on January 1st, and I'd write January on my check. January 15th, I'd make another $200 payment, but I'd write February. Then February 1st, I'd write March. And then February 15th, I'd write April. So that when they were depositing it, and I write it on the back, that's the key thing. So they can't say, it has to be done a certain way. Well, the horrible part of the story, I won't name the bank, but this particular bank decided after 2 years of me doing this that I happen to open a bill. My bills always say zero because I'm paid way in advance. I've paid it off way in advance. Only this bill said I owed money 3 days before it's due. I'm having a heart attack, right? So I call up, the bank, and they go, "Oh, well, you can't do prepayment anymore." I go, "Well, you are supposed to send out a notice. I've received no notice, no email, no nothing from you." And I made several calls. I got to the corporate office, and they were pretty much incompetent. They couldn't say anything. So I had to make an emergency payment over the phone, right? And I spoke to an attorney who said that's a class action. But he said it's not worth the energy. It's worth it. Just go to one of your regular banks that you go to, pay the fee, and get rid of these people because this is a problem bank. And when I looked them up, there were thousands and thousands of complaints against them for the same thing. So I remember I paid about $300 to switch it over, but it relieved me of the aggravation, and the company was so bad, they actually continued to report my loan when the new bank was reporting it. So now it looks like I owe double the money. We came pretty close to a lawsuit at that point because you can't have two creditors reporting the same thing at the same time.
It's got to be, you don't have to answer this, but it's got to be one of two banks, Wells Fargo or Bank of America.
No, actually, it begins with the letter C.
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you after if you want. But yeah. It's you have, listen, banks do make mistakes. They do. And if you don't know what's going on, so, one of the things I just want to tell your listeners quickly is when you're looking at the credit report, and I believe that annualcreditreport.com is actually running weekly still. I don't think that they're just doing annual, because the last I looked, they were doing weekly. No scores, but look at your reports. See what your personal information is. Is it your name, or are there other names, socials, date of births? Because your file could either be merged, you could be a victim of identity theft, but most people don't even look at their credit reports until they want to buy a house. And by that time, when they go to the mortgage person, oops, surprise, you didn't pay attention to what was happening, and now you're in trouble, and maybe you have an offer in on a house that you're not going to even come close to qualifying for because you didn't do your preliminarily, due diligence, so to speak. So you have to be able to look at your reports. Most people can't even figure out, how to read them. And Bob, I'll tell you that I cried the first 3 weeks when I was trying to learn how to do this.
The name of the book is From Credit Disaster to Credit Master: How to Legitimately Earn High Credit Scores and Solve Problems. Laurie's website is crediteducationconsultants.com. Laurie, great book, and thanks for coming on to the program.
Thank you so much, Bob, for having me. I appreciate it.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. I tell you what, in doing this for as long as I have, there's one thing that always is true about your credit scores and debt and all that goes along with it, is you've got to stay informed. You got to know what's going on, And reading books like this is good because you learn some of the tricks of the trade that can help you get rid of that debt, and especially in this environment, which makes it a lot tougher. But get rid of the debt and to make sure you're doing everything you can to increase that credit score. Credit disaster to credit master. This is Bob Brooks. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.